Hello, I'm Rebecca Jari, a Training and Development Lead with LPW Training Services. I've been developing and conducting training programs for pharmaceutical and consumer good companies for over 20 years, both as a company employee and an external vendor. Today's session addresses a common challenge among customers seeking to implement a global software solution in support of their regulatory, quality, and clinical processes. Join us as we offer clues to the best practice for training across a globally dispersed workforce. So what are the biggest challenges faced when addressing a training need for a global workforce? End users spread out across many offices on many continents in various functional areas and user roles. Offices operating in different time zones, making scheduling meetings and trainings a challenge. Even with a multilingual workforce, accommodating local language for some end users is often crucial for full comprehension and adoption of new software. Local policies and government regulations may inspire configuration divergences across countries and regions. Some end users and many vendors work remotely and do not always have access to a local on-site facility. And travel costs to bring smaller groups together in a central location or to send project teams out to more isolated locations cannot always be accommodated in the designated budget. So how do we best plan for a successful rollout and adoption of a new global software solution with all of these challenges to overcome? Let's consider the creation of a central globalized training plan that defines the requirements for training, including a set of core content materials from which regional or local teams can adapt a training program consistent with each other, but still accounting for configuration or process differences. Help answer tough questions such as who requires training? Help your regions compile lists of users by developing a set of criteria that makes users easy to identify based on their job title or work duties. What are the budget considerations? Estimate the cost to update the central globalized training content to reflect divergent configurations and processes, and estimate the cost of translation for each material type created at a global level. Plan to provide this information as early as possible to the regions so budget can be set aside. When should we start planning for training? Determine an average timeline for updating materials and completing translations if needed. Set the standard to earmark training preparation as an early milestone and to encourage regions to designate ample lead time for training prior to launch. Where should the training take place? Face-to-face training is still a highly effective and desirable form of training, but it is not always possible. Virtual training options are crucial to the successful adoption in this new digital age. How should we train everyone? Aim to establish the best methods for your training at your company and develop centralized global content from which regional content can then be built. Individual regions and/or countries will follow the recommended training program created by the global level. Why are these decisions made at a global level? Establishing a core curriculum at the global level ensures individual regions and countries can understand and enforce the training requirements necessary for access. With a centralized training standard, you will get a better and faster adoption and a workforce of able users who can support new users in the future. Establishing a combination of training modalities allows individual regions the flexibility to choose the type of training they deploy and which training types would be most impactful if translated. Hands-on interactive training is still possible in a virtual setting and can be tracked and monitored like traditional face-to-face classrooms. Smaller class sizes and ample time allows hands-on virtual classrooms to be very effective. On-demand e-learning is a great way to allow users to take training anytime and from anywhere. And self-guided training may be possible for users with limited functions for their role. Consider the timings to create each modality and localize each one. Generally speaking, live demos and hands-on training can be implemented quickly, and one-to-one support is possible once a core group of users are trained. Self-guided presentations take longer to develop than live classes, and e-learning courses typically take the most development time. Define training requirements at the global level so that all regional and local teams are granted an endorsed training program. Global teams will be happy to have the direction, and the end user community will experience greater consistency in their training experiences, knowledge bases, and aptitude. Start by preparing a chart that represents each end user role and the learning objectives necessary to fulfill their requirements. Then identify which modalities contain the learning objectives. Identify training owners. Each region should be encouraged to own a portion of the training, even though the core program has been created for them. A training owner has overall responsibility for training development and delivery in their region. This allows local budgets to carry some of the cost without the burden of creating all new materials, and while also affording the flexibility for teams to translate materials as they deem necessary. Recruiting a training owner from each primary region or business area naturally establishes a global network of training leads to collaborate and support each other. Each training owner acts as a single point of contact for all training-related activities, reducing confusion among end users about where to find information about training. Address regional divergences by compiling and maintaining records that identify configuration variances as they arise. Keeping a simple list of divergences from the centralized configuration helps discern the need for training program modifications, and also helps align teams that may be able to share updated training programs if their processes and configurations are similar. Developing a self-help library with consistent project branding, colors, and templates is key to a greater utilization of self-help resources. Consistency makes content easy to identify and easy to interpret across mediums. Stick with a theme and use consistent verbiage. Create job aids with screenshots to help accommodate for language differences across a global workforce. And short videos that teach common tasks are trending and will quickly become the principal resource for end users. To develop comprehensive and relatable FAQs, acquire help desk reports, manager feedback, user survey results, and Vault metrics to determine the areas where users are struggling the most. Also consider pulling together regular meetings for leadership who are close to the Vault application and can report on user experiences. This group is also likely to offer best practices and tips for efficiencies, which can be added to the FAQs as well. Vault can easily search and resources within it viewed or downloaded. It is recommended to store your self-help library in the associated Vault application. Communicate decisions about training to the training owner and onto the global workforce. Spread awareness of lead times needed for training. This includes development time to incorporate divergent configurations or processes. Make training requirements known. Make it clear who must be trained and the different ways they can accomplish their training requirements. Reinforce the training modalities identified at a global level. Ensure the core content and the methods for fulfilling the training requirement are well documented, distributed, and understood by the training owners and the global workforce. Offer a single location for all regions to access core content. Provide a link to the core content from the project page of your network, or consider designing a dedicated portal that showcases the available content. Collaborate with your regional training owners to release self-help materials. Create email templates that regional owners can use to launch showcase training content. This can be done throughout the deployment to raise awareness or after deployment as a method of knowledge maintenance, and/or both. Accommodate training for external users. Vendors are an extension of your workforce and vital to the success of everyday business. These users may require access to Vault and so must fulfill training requirements before access is granted. Vendors may not easily have access to company LMS for the training. Be prepared to offer solutions for onboarding external users. To retain the benefit of interactive e-learning modules with quizzing options, consider using smart MP4s. Smart MP4s such as HTML5 can be hosted on your servers, but launched online via a shared link and can still retain all interactivity and quizzing capabilities. Consider distributing published e-learning modules to your vendors such as CROs and CRAs to upload and issue on their own LMS. Mitigate potential security issues with confidential information by ensuring modules are created in the sandbox environment using mock data, documents, and content. Publish MP4 versions with no interactivity that can be hosted on a shared site to which vendors have access. Quizzes can be built and sent separately if required for access. Many companies offer cloud-based LMS subscriptions. If your budget allows, consider a subscription to an online LMS for your external vendors. Offer hands-on virtual training for the rollout and monthly onboarding or maintenance trainings if possible, and establish a method for one-to-one support from user to user, such as aligning an external vendor team with an experienced user for on-the-job demos and training. This concludes our presentation of best practices for training a globally dispersed workforce. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation and can use these practices for successful training rollouts and adoption of your Viva solution. Thank you.